I'm here with Michael John Warren, director of Freediver. I always like to start off with when talking about documentaries, because when you do a documentary, you don't always know what you're going to get going in. You know, you're not writing a script and then you know what you're going to shoot and then you edit it later. With documentaries, it's like let's shoot something and hopefully a story develops. At what point did the story for this start to develop to where you kind of knew what you had going forward?
Yeah, I would challenge what you said. I do not walk into documentaries not knowing what's going to happen. I have a really clear plan of what I think might happen. I have a clear plan of how I think the film will even lay out after I've shot it. But I know very well that my plan is great, and then the world and the reality of what I shoot will change. The advantage I have is that I was an editor before I was a director, and I don't know how anybody directs a documentary without a mastery of documentary editing because it's literally changing constantly. And as I'm watching the footage through the camera, I'm re-editing the film in my head because this thing that I thought was so important turns out to be not that big of a deal. But over here, something is exploding and it's changing the entire structure of the film. So we're constantly rewriting it. We write it before we start. It starts to write itself again while we're filming it or we're writing it, and then we start editing it and we rewrite it again, and then we get notes and we rewrite it again and again and again and again. We do a billion versions of the edit, and then by the end it's done. So it's one knowing the story, knowing that there's a story there and how you want to go for it. You need a plan from which to sort of launch yourself from. It's also important to have a strong plan. You can't sell a film unless you can talk through it to some people. No one's just going to give you a bunch of money to go make a film. Part of my dogs. Um, Hold on one second. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good.
Sorry about that. Will you be able to cut around that?
Yeah, yeah. I'll give it to Greg. You talk about masterful editing. He's
Thank
the
you,
best.
Greg. Thank you. Sorry. I wish I was in an office right now, but I'm home.
Uh,
Anyway, my point is I have to know what I'm doing in order to inspire the crew and to inspire the people who are paying for it to give us money to make it. But it changes all the time, and so we're constantly re-editing it.
so what you
And
said? Well, when it does make those changes, what are some curveballs or changes that you didn't anticipate going in? It's like, ooh, didn't think that'd be part of the story, but that's something we can
It happened.
take
It
hold of.
happened at the very beginning. We got our funding. We started filming, and then Russia invaded Ukraine, and Alexei, who's Russian, gets banned from the sport he's dedicated his life to. And we're sitting there like, wait a minute, we were going to document this season with Alexei, and now he can't compete. And so it happened almost immediately on this film. And there was a moment where we're like, are we still making this movie? Like, what are we going to do here? And then I eventually was like, I actually think this is better. It's going to take longer to make this film now, but it's a better story. The greatest living freediver in the world doesn't get to compete in the sport he wants to compete in, that he's dedicated his life to, because Vladimir Putin decided to invade the Ukraine, not Alexei's decision. And so it happened immediately, and it made the story better. As soon as our world came crashing down, it was also like, oh, the film's so much better now. And I'm very confident. Of course, it just made a more complex, messier story. And when you're a storyteller and you're looking for characters, you want messy, you want complicated, you don't want it all archetypal, if that's a word. You want it messy. You want that stuff in between. That's where the magic is, and that's where the compelling tension of a story comes from, in my opinion. And so it started happening immediately as we started filming.
And what's it like following something like this? Because Alexei seems pretty. He doesn't seem like a cowboy. But it's still what he's doing is still dangerous. And like, how do you prepare yourself going into something like this, knowing there's a possibility that the person you're following might not make it out alive?
Yeah, Alexei's not a cowboy. He is really clear-minded. They call him the machine, and it's not a bad name for him. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly how to do it. He doesn't think about what could happen to him. That part might not be machine-like, except he does that on purpose. He knows what could happen to him. He's seen it happen. He's experienced it. He's almost died multiple times. So, but he's not a cowboy. He's taking calculated risks. For me, yes, I was really aware that I might be filming someone who wasn't going to be there at the end of the project. I prepared myself for that. There's one point in the film that's extremely harrowing. He had announced the night before what he was going to do. Everyone thought it was a crazy announcement, including me, and I didn't sleep that night. Hold on one second. And I didn't sleep that night. And that day happened. It was a really stressful day. And I didn't sleep the next night either because of what he was planning on doing, and what he did was so damn dangerous. And it became, one of the most important parts of the movie, or certainly a catalyst for some of the more and more other important parts of the film. But yeah, I knew that I might be filming someone who wasn't going to be around for the entire project.
Yeah. And obviously you mentioned the editing, going into documentaries, and I totally agree with that because editing just helps with filmmaking in general, let alone a documentary. But what is it about editing that kind of puts your mind differently than say another filmmaker doing if they went into the same thing? Why is yours going to be better or more easier for you than say a non-editor?
I can just work more efficiently. I know what I need. I have the end goal in mind the whole time. And so, and the fact that I'm confident in my ability to edit and to tell a story lets me say, like, hey, we don't have to go film that. I already have something that satisfies that part of the story, and I don't need to go chase, we don't have to go chase that. That's done. Because there's something over here. So the fact that I can edit a film live in my mind as I'm making it gives me a huge advantage to know what to do next, what not to do, what to lean in on, what to stay away from. Again, I don't know how you do a documentary without that. I'm not right all the time, but I'm right a lot of the time. And I think that gives my crew confidence in, okay, he's asking us to do this. This must be important. It gives everyone confidence knowing that I have a lot of experience in the edit room, and that helps drive what I do out there in the field. Again, I don't know how you do documentaries without that, but people do. And I'm sure it's a lot more arduous of a process, although I can't imagine a more arduous process than what we did to make this film, because this was a very, very challenging film to make. But I think if someone tried to make this film who didn't have the command of editing like I do, I'm positive the film wouldn't have been as good as it is.
And what was it like shooting this? Because like with my background, obviously the scene was beautiful to look at, but you have a bunch of scenes underwater. Do you have like what was your camera crew like? What was it like the nuts and bolts and the challenges that were
Yeah.
shooting something that a lot of it happens underwater?
Yeah, it's about as hard as it gets. I mean, maybe filming in space is harder, right?
Probably.
There's a world where it's not, because there's no current, there's no sharks, there's no typhoons in space, right? Um, so, I mean, look, getting to space is really hard. You can just jump in the water. But I think once you're there, you're kind of in a vacuum and it's really dangerous. But again, no currents. Um, Yeah, I knew this was going to be about as hard as it's ever been. I took everything that I know how to do as a director, single camera documentary, big multi-camera event films, being super organized, being able to vibe with a person who I need to get their story out and bring their soul out so I can present it. I have this really wide range of skills that I've developed over my entire directing career. They all came into play here. I don't know if I could have done this if I hadn't filmed Broadway shows in a single take, because the amount of preparation it takes to do a 3 hour, one take film is really, really hard, and it takes weeks. And so that ability to look at the like inches and lighting, like everything that you need to know to plan for that, came into play here, because he's doing a world record. He's going to do it one time. It's going to happen 512 feet underwater, and there's no redo. And if you miss it, your movie's ruined. And so um, we built a really strong team. Shout out to my director of photography, Jeffrey Peterman. He's a young man in LA. He's a phenom. He's just not a normal person. And I say that in a good way. Very helpful for me that he's not a normal person. We were very organized. We did a tremendous amount of work. We took some existing technologies, combined them in ways that had never been combined before, invented a couple of tricks along the way, and filmed a really hard to film sport in a way that's never been filmed before. And there's other freediving films out there. Photography wise, they're not even close to what we accomplished here. Our film sets its own world record with the deepest image of someone in the open water at 512 feet, that first big dive. That's a world record for photography. There's GoPro footage of stuff that might be that deep, but I'm talking we have cinema cameras down there and the shots show up and you can put those shots on the side of a building and they're going to look incredible. And so that was really hard to pull all that off. It was a combination of underwater robotics, like drone cameras down there, a really great scuba team. Shout out to Tommy and the whole Belgian crew. And then great DPs all above the water as well. It's like the story isn't all just down there. You're on a boat. I don't know if you've ever watched the making of Jaws, but that just making Jaws above water they almost didn't finish that film. So just being on a boat alone is really hard. And then we're on a boat and then going under and then we're going even deeper and then back up and there's a super typhoon coming and there's all this stuff happening. So I really just took everything I know how to do to pull this film off. And thank goodness I had a really strong crew who was really dedicated, who saved my butt every single day.
Sounds like you got developed a lot of tools making this do like a documentary in the future, no matter how hard it is. Probably go at it and go, dude, we did Freediver. This ain't nothing.
I mean, yeah, honestly, yes. I don't know if it can get and then, like there's challenges in all of them, right? But like I said, I've filmed some things that are really hard to film, and this was way beyond that. And so there's nothing. Yeah, if you told me I was going to space, I'd be like, okay, I got to work on that. After that, I don't know.
We're all gonna die, but it's gonna look
Yeah,
cool.
we might die. Well, no, I mean, look, I'm a safety freak, thank gosh, and everyone on my crew, no, without there might have been a scratch along the way, a couple wet pieces of gear. We might have lost a walkie in the ocean. I don't know, but we were really planned. We were really good at communicating, and we were really safety conscious. One of my goals as a director is no one ever gets hurt on any of my sets ever, knock on wood. But I also have a pretty dangerous career. But we're really, really meticulous in the safety protocols that we put in place to make this film.
Yeah. Well, Freediver will be available on Prime Video to buy or rent on digital starting December 7th. And
That's
I guess
Saturday.
yeah,
This Saturday.
Saturday. But we'll leave with this. You have a movie recommendation, kind of a lesser seen movie, something that in your head you're like, this is really good and no one talks about it.
Yeah, one of my favorite documentaries of all time is a film called Genghis Blues. It's maybe 15 or 20 years old, maybe more than that. It's about a blues musician who is like I haven't watched it in like 20 years or 15 years, but he's a blind blues musician who's in his basement working on a transistor radio, and he's like retired. He's not really performing anymore in shortwave radio, and he hears Tuvian throat singing coming. I don't know if it's coming from Tuvia or where he's getting the signal from, and he's mystified by it, and he decides to like figure out what that music is. And it's one of those movies. It's really low budget, right? It's a movie that barely exists, right? Because they barely are pulling it off. The crew's in the movie because they're like, how are we going to get on the plane? But it's a story that just you can't even believe the story. It's like, how could this possibly be true? Genghis Blues, check it out. It might be a little hard to find, but it's really good.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I never even heard of that, so I'll be excited to seek that one out. But
Cool.
yeah, Michael, thanks for joining me and congratulations on the film and look forward
Thank
to
you.
seeing what else you have in the future.
Yeah, we'll be announcing something in a couple months.
Sweet.